Namaskar and Jai Hind sir. It's my pleasure to have with us a man of steel who's Defence Secretary Dr. Ajay Kumar ji, 1985 batch officer with an awesome inspiring background in technology as well as in defence. Defence, as all of us know, had certain moonshot moments like one rank, one pension, permanent commissioning of women. We also heard recently about corporatization of OFBs, etc. And we have now an opportunity to listen from you several aspects, specifically IT related, sir, to begin with, because you have that experience. First and foremost, in defense particularly, border onslaughts are getting coupled up with onslaughts by rogue states in cyberspace. What is India's preparedness on that front?
Modern warfare is going to be very different from conventional warfare.
Okay.
And in today's world, we are going to see countries, non-state players, actually taking up activities to harm you, to cause financial or other loss, physical losses to you through means other than the normal warfare that used to happen.
Yes.
Today, cyber attacks have become one of the most common ways where which both state and non-state players are active. And this is happening across the world. We need to also safeguard our interests. Cyber attacks can not only cause damage in terms of data theft or putting some economic asset incapacitated, but it can also cause physical damage also at times.
True.
Because more and more things are today driven by IT.
Yes.
You have Internet of Things,
Yes.
where systems are communicating, and we are getting into autonomous vehicles, autonomous systems. If you are able to cause some kind of malfunctioning in these systems, it could result into physical damage and loss of life, etc. as well. This is a new reality.
True.
And we need to prepare for it. For cyber attacks, it is not really only for defense that we can address, because the attack may not only be targeted to a military target.
True.
It could also be very much be targeted to a civilian target with massive implications.
True.
So therefore, we really need not only a whole of government approach, in fact a whole of nation approach.
True.
And all players, including people who use technology, all agencies and organizations have to collectively work together. And I think there is need for greater education, greater capacity building in the country to be aware of the kind of cyber threats that we, and for that matter any other country, has to be prepared for in future. And that a lot of this work is happening in my earlier job, as you are also aware. Ministry of Electronics and IT, CERT particularly, has created a framework for cyber security in the country. Telecom operators and all communication channels through which traffic comes to the country have a huge role to play. But within defense, we recognize this as one of the new ways by which wars are going to be fought of the future. And therefore, with the approval of Cabinet, a Defence Cyber Agency has been formed.
Yeah.
It's a dedicated resource. It's a tri-service organization which is meeting the needs of all the three services, the Army, Navy and Air Force. And which means that the people have been drafted from all the three services to work in this agency. And the people have been specifically trained in some of the new technologies required both for cyber defense and cyber offense.
Okay.
Without going into too much detail, what I can share with you is that we have the advantage of IT industry and its capabilities in the software world.
Yes, sir.
And we are the envy of the world as far as that is concerned.
True.
We are leveraging that capability as well as the strategic oversight of the government to be able to actually use cyber to protect our country. However, this is really a moving target. It is not something on which we can ever say that we have
totally reached.
and therefore we are continuously trying to meet the challenge. The other thing is cyber, when it by its very nature does not recognize boundaries, physical territorial boundaries.
Very true, very true.
And so therefore there is a global requirement.
Yes, sir.
And there's a lot of collaboration in the civil side. Today countries are working together in terms of
Climate
sharing,
change.
climate change. Even in cyber, in sharing information of zero-day attacks, malware, common, malware repositories. Similarly, in defense side also, there is need for countries, especially those countries, friendly countries with whom we share our values, our overall vision of what the world should, a rule-based world, to come together and share information and capabilities. And in that regard, collaboration with other countries has been one of the active ways by which we have been working with our friendly countries with respect to cyber defense of the country. Let me just say that, I think we are conscious of this threat. Government is giving requisite importance to it. The importance is increasing as we go by, but we cannot rest. And I think we continuously need to improve in this regard.
I totally agree, sir. And I agree, global consortiums, global handshaking is very important, especially cyber itself is a global phenomena. Sir, there is a word in this context that keeps haunting me, and I think you're the right person, cyber disarmament. We heard about nuclear disarmament. So what do you think is cyber disarmament?
So cyber disarmament is really still not something which has, come to a stage where we can actually start thinking that it is going to happen. Like nuclear disarmament, the thought is that people create cyber weapons. They create you heard of Stuxnet.
True.
And which creates so much of havoc.
Yes.
Now, can we all, like we talked of nuclear disarmament, countries come together and adopt a common understanding of what kind of cyber weapons will be will not be used, will not be, and if those who have created, whether by themselves or by their non-state players active in their country, we will collectively, world will come together and try to put a stop to this. But the problem, unlike in nuclear is that cyber is so, a smart kid sitting in a corner of a room can actually be doing this kind of damage. And not only that, I think we are also aware that some countries have been using cyber attacks as, policies and a strategy of that country.
Very true.
So there is, I think this is still something which is at a very nascent stage. I don't think there is any broad consensus in this regard among the countries. And, let us see how this thing will, evolve as time passes by. It's difficult to say at this stage. How soon we can see, some kind of an agreement which will be acceptable to everyone.
No, I agree. In your first question also, you rightly said like-minded countries. So we don't know what is in their, apparent intention and hidden intention. We constantly hear about how another country, a rogue state, is probably influencing our youth. So what is your vision of curbing this kind of menace?
Today, and this is something that has become a reality.
True.
On a larger side, if you see, what is happening is, like I said, the modern warfare is very different. We talked about cyber attack. Now, cyber radicalization is a kind of information warfare that is going on in the world. And the reality is that some of the major terrorist organizations, like ISIS, have been using it very effectively across the world, more effectively than some of the state players have been.
Very unfortunate.
There are, if you see the kind of propaganda machinery which some of the terrorist organizations are using, again thanks to the power of technology and digital platforms and the internet, that when they carry out an operation and which they are able to succeed, they actually make a big pomp and show. There have been cases where such attacks have been televised live on the web, which tends to inspire a lot of youth. the power of a weapon, the power of going and, and anyone who has a little bit of disgruntlement against the system tends to be very, that this is the way by which. So, information warfare is something which is becoming, I think, one of the most potent warfare. We see this not only you talked of radicalization, but even certain countries are using this again as an instrument of their policy. And because today the way the things are shaped is that what matters is what is propagated and not the reality. The facts get hidden somewhere, and what is projected becomes the reality.
So narrative rules.
Narrative becomes the most. So it is therefore, this is something which is having impact. Now, I think we are now, how to deal with it is a big question, and we are, it is certain. You see, the world is cognizant of this.
True.
Social media platforms have been used a lot for this kind of radicalization. Young children, young youth, etc., who are all active on social media are, very easy targets for this. Social media platforms are cognizant of this. They have taken some steps to be able to do this. But again, as we also see the recent, the episode on Facebook, where we realize the commercial interests versus some kind of social responsibility are getting today
in contrast
are being weighed against. Trade-off is between these two, and I think the amount of influence and impact the social media platforms can have is not, at least I cannot visualize. I mean, we spoke of earlier newspaper and media having impact, but social media has actually transcended that.
Yeah.
And it is today possible to reach every single individual, customized information by which he can be influenced in his mind.
True.
So I think today this big debate that is going on in the world is how much of oversight should be there on the social media platform, which is again the trade-off between free speech versus government control, and we do not want that to be curbed at all.
Very true.
And the world itself is debating on this issue, so that people are invested in trust, people with intentions which are not fully correct, they are not able to manipulate the minds of people, polarize the minds of people,
Yes, sir.
and create undesirable social tensions,
Yes, sir.
radicalization, or any such other things, and that can be curbed. My own feeling is that in the coming months, we will see certain certain framework evolve of how these social media platforms, how the digital information media
Yes, sir.
should be managed, and that will give good answers to this. But this problem is really universal. Again, it is not specific to India.
Yes,
and
sir.
I think we all, as citizens who are participating in it, will have to play a responsible role to evolve such a framework for the world.
I agree, sir, and I think we must appreciate our political leadership at present, where like IT rules 2021, we saw this kind of big techs getting a little, and which is right. I mean, it is citizens' interest and not big tech's interest that should be always considered. Totally agree with you. Sir, this was IT as, it's a double-edged sword. So IT has its negative repercussions for a state, for civilians. However, sir, IT is a tool also. So, and we heard this drone policy which came up. So, can we use drones hypothetically as border monitoring tools, sir? Is it possible?
Not hypothetically. Today, drones are extensively being used for border monitoring.
Surveillance, okay. In India, sir?
In India also, and in fact by our adversaries also. So
yes.
it is, in fact, drones have been first used on the by the armed forces.
Always, yeah.
And so therefore, yes, very much so. In fact, drones have more advantages, especially when we look at it. we have borders with very extreme climates,
Yes, sir.
difficult climate,
Yes, sir. True, true.
adverse weather conditions. I mean, drones can work in those kind of
Sir,
conditions.
altitude, would it cover that altitude?
So you have to create drones which are capable of working in that kind of altitude.
Okay.
But yes, and those technologies are there. Second thing is drone. Today drone costs have come down. If you are close to the border, you are always under threat of some kind of attack or some kind of this
Yes,
from
sir.
the other side. But drones, you don't have to worry. I mean, at best they
Yes.
can take down a drone, but that you still can.
Yeah,
You don't have to
safeguard.
worry about it. So
Lives.
drones have become a very common way of doing surveillance and monitoring, increasingly on the border.
But don't you think these drones, if they are manufactured in-house, like Atmanirbhar Bharat, sir, self-reliance on our own in manufacturing, indigenous production. So what is defense idea? Because recently I heard there is a lot of private players who are building up aircrafts, hand grenades. So how would this reflect in defense production in future, public-private partnership?
It's very heartening to see the way our drone industry is coming.
Ji, sir.
And that is one of the motivations also for the new drone policy which has come,
Yes, sir.
to develop the ecosystem for drone design, development, etc. I must share this story with you,
Yes, sir.
which is a true story. When I was Secretary Defense Production about three and a half years back, a youngster came to me and he told me that he has come back from MIT
Okay.
and he wants to develop a drone.
Okay.
And I was not sure whether, just one person, whether he'll be able to do it. His name is Vikas Mishra, I'll tell you, but nevertheless, I said, all right. And we tried to help him in whatever way. Today, in 3 years, this youngster took a house on rent
Yeah.
in Noida.
Okay.
He designs drones from scratch,
Okay.
including engines and except standard components which are off the shelf. Everything else is fully designed in house.
Okay.
He has been making drones.
Okay.
He has got them tested with armed forces.
Wow.
He is supplying to armed forces, and several of our units
Yes,
have
sir.
procured drone from him. He's today, become an extremely sought after
Startup.
drone company.
Okay.
With lot of people who have been approaching him with venture capital and support. And he was, so I used to ask him, when you started designing, where did you test? So he says, मैं छत के ऊपर ही उड़ा देता था. You see, that is a
That's
jugaad.
the
That's a jugaad that people do. But today, in 2 to 3 years, in fact, his first drone would have been sold in less than 2 years. Now he's quite a well-established supplier. The space at which, and with all his money, with short capital, small capital, we have seen that they have been able to produce drones for armed forces. And when I say armed forces, it is very important to understand that these are drones which are far more, these have more stringent specifications as compared to the commercial or civil
ones.
requirements.
True, obviously, sir.
And to be able to do this is phenomenal. And he's not the only story. Let me share with you another story of a startup. His name by the name of New Space, Sameer Joshi, who was doing some work on Swarm. This again 2-3 years back when I was Secretary of Defense Production, he came. And in fact, we came to know of him because the DRDO equivalent lab of US,
Yes,
Air
sir.
Force Research Lab, approached us from US and said that you have this startup and who's working on swarm technologies and we want to collaborate with them. And they
Okay.
wanted our permission to collaborate.
Right.
And then we found out that this person had been working in such amazing swarm technologies
Okay.
that even in US they did not have that.
So they had to come to us.
They came to us and
Wow.
in fact, in this year's Army Day, there was a demonstration of swarms, which was his swarms, which were demonstrated.
Okay.
So today we have drone capabilities. We have, and these are not the only ones. While I mentioned this, because this
These are
is first-hand
stories, yeah.
experiences which I have had. There are scores of companies, drone companies in India, who are making drones of various sizes. and shapes for various applications, customized, and these drones are being supplied to armed forces and for other purposes as well. So I think in drones we have seen all the three services now buying from Indian vendors. There are some very specialized what we call as hail kind of drones,
Okay.
high altitude, long endurance,
Okay, sir.
which are today, that kind of capability does not exist in India today, but I'm sure that the pace at which this whole industry is growing, especially with this new drone policy which has opened it and deregulated the whole thing,
True, true.
I expect an explosion of drone designers and manufacturers in the country. And given our experience in IT, given our experience in electronics, I have not an iota of doubt that this capability, because I saw these people develop their drones when the regulations were very strict, and I mentioned to you,
Yes, sir.
what he had to do to make his drone was to
Yeah.
so-called unofficially
Yeah, now
fly
fly
the
from
drone
Chhatra.
from his roof.
Yeah, true.
Today, these things have been deregulated, and you can do it, and you can,
Imagine,
you can do it, you can sell it, because otherwise, even if you design earlier, where do you sell it? Because there
Yeah,
is no
true.
permission to sell.
There's no permission,
People did
sir.
not have permission to fly.
Yeah.
So all that has been deregulated, and there is a proper system by which you can design, manufacture, and then sell it for operations within the country as well. So India is a big market for drones, and there's a huge export market. I really see this as, India becoming, not only for its own requirements, the way the amount of interest I have seen in the drone startups and drone companies as a global player in the drone market of the world.
And Swarm also.
And swarms, yeah,
Yes,
drones including swarms.
So you mentioned Swarm, I'm reminded of a novel, sir, by Michael Crichton, which says Prey. And it's all about swarm
Swarms,
technology,
yes,
how it
yes.
can like fly in, change
Yes,
shapes.
and
So that's
yeah, absolutely,
So if
absolutely.
India is there, I think, so that's what I like in our present leadership is, the vision. The vision to be Atmanirbhar, the vision to have self-regulating platforms like drone, you talked about policy. So there's another thing which I want to really hear from you is corporatizations of OFBs. So what is your vision? What do you think, would be the best way to maximize this kind of OFBs coming together as corporate entities?
It's a historic step.
Yes.
And it's a step which was waiting to happen for nearly 2 decades. There have been committees and committees, and it's a case study for IIPA.
True, sir. We'll take it up.
How, because beyond a point, when a problem becomes very large,
Yes, sir.
resolution of even though it was obvious to everyone, as you can see in reports after report,
True,
that
true.
OFB needs to be corporatized. You can't have a manufacturing activity done under a government department with no balance sheet, no understanding of costs involved in production. But because the problem size was so big, it was not possible for government to take this step. I think this step which has been taken will be good from the defense industry perspective of the country,
True.
because ultimately, as a student of economics, you know so very well, ultimately any asset which is underperforming is going to finally sink in the weight of its loss.
True. Very well said.
So it is now it will be possible. They have lot of assets, they have lot of talented people, and so they will be able to perform on their economic value, optimal value for the human resource, the infrastructure which they have. So from their perspective also, they will become competitive and will have a brighter future. They will make more money, more profits, and they will therefore be able to create more wealth for themselves and for the country. And from the defense industry ecosystem, this would again be. After all, if you remember, OFBs were world's leading, arms manufacturing companies, one of the world's leading. And when British had set them up 250 years back, and somehow over the years, now they had reached a situation that had, that was not very encouraging. And therefore, I think this is a historic step.
Yeah, and you've been mentioning about tri-services coming together in various ways for the betterment of our, national security. Unification of command, theaterization. How do you think India is moving towards it? Would India ever move towards it? Is it a possibility, or is it just a theoretical concept?
No, I think we are very most definitely moving towards theatre commands.
Okay.
Again, another historic decision which had been pending for over 2 decades in defense, which was taken last year, was the formation of CDS.
CDS, true.
And the first time effort of jointness. Countries across the world, major countries have done this 2 decades, 3 decades back. China did it over the last decade or so.
Okay.
Because, jointness is essential from the perspective of being not only being able to three forces being able to work together or in a coordinated manner.
Yes, sir.
The unified command concept you said, but also there is so much of duplication and overlap of capabilities and assets which combine together.
True, true.
There are logistic support at each places which can be combined together.
Yes, sir.
There are a lot of administrative and other functions which can be combined together.
Okay.
There are capabilities within the armed forces which overlap with each other, and some of these capabilities can be brought together once the jointness happens, once the theatre commands happen.
Okay.
Not only that, I mean, today suppose if you have to fight a war with Pakistan,
True.
You need to have the army.
Yes, sir.
And multiple commands in the army which will be
Yes,
active.
sir.
Then you have to call the Air Force,
Air
and then again multiple commands in the Air Force which have to coordinate because you have to face Pakistan. And then for the Navy, from the marine side, from the Arabian Sea side, for the threats there, you have to invoke the Navy.
True.
Now, I must say that if you look at the way 71 war was there, one of our reasons for a great success was that we were able to bring all these things together.
True.
But it would be so much more easier if this system of bringing together could be institutionalized, so that
Yes,
you are
sir.
able to face the enemy in a single whole without having to go through multiple channels or multiple different hierarchies.
True.
And therefore, I think theaterization is definitely
Helpful.
a way forward now
Ji.
after the formation of CDS.
Yes, sir.
Work is already happening.
Ji, sir.
Now, having said that, I must also say that this is a difficult change.
Very
Any change is difficult. Change management is very difficult.
Yes, sir.
In the armed forces, the process is even more complex, both because of the scale of their presence,
Yes, sir.
extreme, in a regimented training and mindsets which the armed forces have, and also the complexity of the operations in which they have to deal with on real time when in a war situation. So
True.
anything that has to be done has to be done in such a manner that the process of transition does not compromise the security of the country.
Very well said.
So therefore, we have to do it in a smooth and seamless manner.
Yes, sir.
The transition will happen, and that is being deliberated. Discussions are taking place. Different views are there, and slowly we will see
So
that
we've started.
we will keep moving in that direction with the passage of time. And a lot of things have started to happen also. And
So
theatre
converge.
commands will be the culmination of all these steps towards jointness.
So I'm so glad, because if India is moving towards convergence, you yourself said whole nation approach, one government, whole of India, whole of government. Sir, there is one question which if I don't ask, I won't be personally, appeased, if I can say. Permanent commissioning of women in defense forces. So I hear both sides. I mean, being a woman, I would totally be pro it, but I have my own male colleagues who have their doubts. So can we hear it from you?
No, I think I'm those people who believe that women can do everything that men
Very
can
well
do
said.
and even better.
Very well said.
Of course, like you rightly said, there are some people who possibly doubted this. We have done several things to be able to open up doors for women. New glass ceilings are being broken.
True.
And starting from the childhood stage, all Sainik schools have been opened up for girls today. Earlier, they were only for boys, which means from the inception stage, you are not allowing girls to,
have that
get trained,
mindset,
get trained to be a. We are now, like you said, permanent commission for women have happened. Women are today flying fighter jets.
Yes, sir.
Women are today going on ships.
Yes, sir.
Women are they were in many verticals, many functions, they were there. Now all streams have been opened up, and with the admission of women in NDA,
Yes, sir.
now everything is open and everything is equal.
Yes, sir.
And it is up to the women. I mean, it is a choice.
They
Like all men who have a choice of the job they want to do.
True.
I mean, not every man wants to be a soldier.
True, very
So
true.
every girl doesn't want to be a soldier. But if there is people and women, and there are women who may want this and who will do their work with due commitment and abilities, I'm absolutely sure that our armed forces will gain with the presence of women in coming years.
True. So it's all about opportunity,
It's all
which
about
we are offering them, which is the right approach. Final question, sir, which is very important for my young listeners to know. What is your message for civil service aspirants of the day?
So, I think civil services is a extremely fulfilling career. It's something something which gives you an opportunity to make a difference in ways more than one would have visualized when one thought of joining the civil service. Having said that, how much you do and contribute is a matter of your own choice.
Yes, sir.
It is not necessary that everyone will. Some people choose not to be so very, do not want to be so to make that kind of an effort. But really speaking, I think when you get into civil services, you have the blank canvas of the society or the role in which you are assigned, and you can paint it the way you want. And the second thing which I wanted to say is that the people think that there are good jobs and there are bad jobs. I don't think there are any. The scope is so wide for a civil servant. In every job, there are humongous opportunities to make a difference. And I think, therefore, there is nothing like that this job is good or bad. Third thing I want to say is that time has come where civil servants are not going to be merely because you are sitting on the chair, people will respect you. People will respect you because of what you do and not what you are.
True.
And therefore, I mean, in this country, people who get into civil services are the brightest of the lot. But that is the starting point. From there onwards, you have to make sure that you are good enough to be considered as the brightest in the world, so that you can take your country to that level in whatever sphere or activity which you are working. That your aspiration of taking the country to be the best in the world can be only when you yourself are ahead of everyone else.
True.
So, getting to civil service is not an end, it is only the beginning. That is the most important thing.
Very well explained, sir. Very well explained. Thank you. I think with civil officers like you, we can reform, perform and transform. Pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Jai Hind.